But I think this was very beautiful. Thank you for recommending it to me. I think it was Rajesh. I don't know how you say your name. I'm sorry if I messed that up. But thank you for leaving a comment and letting me know you wanted me to react to this video. It was very beautiful. I really enjoyed his ideas about consciousness and about breaking it down. And like he was saying, it's just the very beginning of a lot of these ideas. And I think what makes it beautiful for me is because I've seen many different paths and ideas, you kind of get to see the different connections it has with many other ideas and the different beautiful ideas that underlie all of it, which is the unity and the connection. And even if you dive into psychism or mediumship, you understand, or you start to learn about like out-of-body experiences, you start to understand the consciousness that is apart from the physical body. And especially when you're learning about out-of-body experiences, because people talk about how they could see themselves apart from this body, or they could see themselves in a different form, and that helped them to understand that life lives on even after the physical body is not here. And so it's beautiful for me to be able to make those different connections by listening to this one specific idea and then pull all the things that I've learned and understand the deeper layer. So that was very beautiful. Thank you for recommending it to me. I have not ever heard that teacher speak before, so pretty cool. I get to learn new ideas and new teachers. So if you have another teacher you have, let me know and maybe I will react to them. Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Alexis. For anybody who doesn't know, welcome if you're new, or welcome back if you have been here before. I am the author of A Journey into Truth, Unveiling Life's Secrets for Truth Seekers, and this book talks all about the last 6 years of my life, the adventures I've been on, like going into the jungle and doing ayahuasca, and my spiritual path, and also some of the life lessons and philosophies I have learned along the way. So if you're interested in learning more about that book, you can visit my website at www.vibratecreate.com, or you can find me on Instagram at Vibrate2Create. Here on Vibrate to Create, I talk about all things spiritual and metaphysical. I make reaction videos to things like spiritual teachers, spiritual teachings, inspirational, motivational, and sometimes funny videos. And I also make entrepreneurial videos letting you guys know how to self-publish your own books. So if you're interested in that kind of content, then click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to be notified of when I post new videos so you never miss a video.
Sometimes people say, if God exists or Atma exists, why can't I see it? It's like saying, if the Higgs boson exists, why can't I see it? Because it is not yogya, it is not a subject of your normal vision. You cannot see it that way. If it was, if there is you can say that there is no elephant in the room. Why is there no elephant in the room? Because I can't see it. That's a perfectly correct statement. Because if there was an elephant, you could have seen it. But if there is an Higgs boson, you cannot say, because I cannot see it, it's not there. Similarly, here it says, the consciousness which you are is not something that you can see or smell or touch. Adrishyam. Second, avyavaharyam. It is not within transaction. Transaction means usable. What we can see and feel and touch, what we can speak about, what we can use, that is vyavaharyam. Pure consciousness is not an object which can be talked about, seen, felt and used. It is not transactable, it's avyavaharyam. But remember, it is the ground, it is the source of all vyavahara. Without that, none of this can occur. None of this can occur without the pure consciousness, which is illumining all this. But it is itself avyavaharyam. Agrahyam, it cannot be grasped, which means it is not a vishaya of the pancha karmendriyas. You cannot hold it with your hands, you cannot walk to it in pilgrimage. You're going to Badrinath or Kedarnath, I'm going to Turiyam. You cannot walk to the Turiyam. And so agrahyam. Alakshanam, this is a technical term. It means it cannot be inferred. Lakshana here means the sign by which you infer something. The road is wet. So what do you infer? There was rain earlier. So is there some such sign? In Sanskrit, the classic example is Parvato Vanniman Dhumat. There is fire on the hill because I can see smoke. There is a relation between smoke and fire. So if I see the smoke, I can infer there is fire. A lot of science is done like that. through some signs and you infer a chain. Be inferred because there is no sign by which you can infer it. Then achintyam, you cannot think about it. Have you thought about it? Then it is not Turiya. You cannot think about it, but remember the opposite also holds. Whatever you think about is illumined by this Turiyam. The fact that we are having a conscious experience is because of this Turiyam. So you cannot think about it, achintyam, avyapadeshyam. It literally means it cannot be named. It cannot be named. It will take some time to explain why it cannot be named. Then what is Turiyam? Now it speaks about it in positive terms. He says, ekatma pratyasaram. Eka, one, Atma, I. Pratyaya, the cognition, the feeling of I-ness. Saram, the essence. If you follow this I feeling, you will come to Turiyam. You know, when Ramana Maharshi says, who am I? You practice that. It's this thing. Ekatma pratyasaram. This is exactly what Ashtavakra Muni told Janak Raja. In that dream state where you there, dream is false, no doubt, but where you there? Yes, I was there. In this waking state now, are you there now? Yes, I am there. That is the Atma Pratyaya. I feeling, the consciousness which is in the waker, in the dreamer, and even in the sleeper, which is illumining the blankness of deep sleep. Prapancha upashamam. Upashamam means cessation. Prapancha is, these are prapancha. Jagrat prapancha, swapna prapancha, sushupti, you cannot call it prapancha, but anyway. Prapancha upashamam. What is the Turiyam? Where it is completely untouched by the trouble and the sorrows and the limitations of these three prapanchas. Shantam, absolutely peaceful, ever undisturbed. There is no world there to disturb you. That is your reality. And Shivam, Shivam here means Ananda Swarupam. It is full of joy. Advaitam, non-dual. Non-dual why? Because there is nothing apart from Turiya. Just as gold is Advaitam with respect to bangle, necklace and ring. Ring is apart from necklace, necklace is apart from bangle. But none of them are apart from gold. In fact, in all of them, what is the only reality? Gold. Why do you say it is the only reality? Because if you remove the gold, they will disappear. So with respect to these three, gold is Advaitam, non-dual. There is nothing apart from gold in this. Similarly, with respect to our universe, three universes, waking universe, dream universe, and the darkness of deep sleep. With respect to them, Turiyam is Advaitam. They are not apart from you, the Turiyam. In fact, in that sense, it's a tremendous statement. If this is not apart from you, the Turiyam, in that case, this waker is you, the Turiyam, and this entire waking world is actually you, the Turiyam. In that sense, you are the world. You can actually, the Advaitin declares, I am the world. Atme Vedam Sarvam. I am everything. I feel oneness with everything. Just like in the dream world, you were there, many people were there, non-living things were there in your dream. But when you wake up, what do you say? It was entirely constructed from my own mind. That means whatever you saw in the dream was you. Actually you. You are one with everything in the dream. You means the waker. You are one with everything in your dream. When you were dreaming, everything was generated from you. So you are one with everything. In the same way, in the waking world also, everything is generated from the Turiyam or projected in the Turiyam. So we are all one with all that we experience in that sense. Turiya. People think it is a fourth reality, but actually it is the only reality because 1, 2, 3 are actually false. These three are not real.
Whoa, that was cool. I haven't heard it broken down in that kind of way, how he decided to first talk about what each of the different worlds are and then to talk about the different forms that it can take and how the gold is through all of them. Ooh, that tied in so well together. How the gold is through all of them, but it is not each different form, but each different form is the form when it is in that state, but the gold is the underlying, that is what it is when it is in that specific state, if that makes sense. Oh, that's interesting how he decided to like tie everything all in together and like interweave all of them after breaking down each specific like piece. And it's very interesting. I've never heard it described in that way.
Who is this Turiya? We are coming to the end. Sa Atma. Sa Atma means that is what you are. Atma means I. Atma literally means I. Atma does not mean a ghost or something, Paramatma, nothing like that. Atma means I. Sa Atma. That fourth one is the answer to this question, which we started with. Who am I? Who am I? This fourth one.
And also, I want to talk about, because I've, learned from so many different kinds of teachers, so many different paths of believing, I have learned quite a bit about, like, if you look back into things like plant medicine, or even when I went and spoke to people at spiritual festivals who are kind of hippies, if you want to call them that, the underlying, under so many different spiritual ideas, including things like plant medicine, like ayahuasca or San Pedro, or even Buddhism, a lot of the underlying beliefs are that there is, oh, the cat's on. I had to let the cat in. A lot of the underlying beliefs is that we are all one, that there is a unity and there's a connection to each of us. I was in a psychic class once. We were learning about trance and psychism and mediumship as well with Gordon Smith, and he talked about this analogy of oneness, but he said it's kind of like a diamond, and there are different facets that make up this specific diamond, and each consciousness is like a different facet from this specific diamond. But if you look at the whole thing, it is all part of the same diamond. It's just in different forms and different ways of being. And I think also maybe it was Rumi who said something along the lines of, like, a drop in the ocean is not the ocean, but it is a part of the whole ocean. And that's kind of like each of us is a drop that makes up the whole ocean of humanity and humans, and also part of the world. There's a lot of these underlying ideas in many different belief systems, many different paths of spirituality, and I'm always very open to hearing different ideas and different ways of saying it or ways of talking about it, and creating a deeper understanding. And I always talk about not hanging on to ideas and not hanging on to a specific teacher or teaching, and to actually dive deep within ourselves and to keep the mind eternally open to new information and new ways of believing. Because in the moment that we hang on to an ideology, it can lead to some very big consequences, and can lead to, like he was saying, that waking self believing, oh, I am this religion, I am Christian, I am Catholic, and so anybody who is not Catholic is not a part of my group. And so, that can lead to a whole host of issues without questioning, and can lead to some painful experiences or painful ways of seeing somebody who is different than yourself. So I'm very open, and I like to not hang on to ideas, I think.
Turiam. Sa Atma. Now what do you do after all this? Sa Vigneyaha. That has to be realized. Not only listening about it in a class or reading about it in a book, but making it a living reality. One interesting thing, Swami Vivekananda says, I will end with this. Swami Vivekananda says,
I met these shamans who were from Peru, they're brothers, and they do Wachuma ceremonies. And so there was people there who had questions for them and wanted to learn about spirituality and their ideas about it. And one of them said, he was talking about how the truth is not going to be found in a book, it's not going to be found in ideology or in a specific process or a specific teacher, but to really dive into the self and to learn from life itself, and to learn from nature itself, and to learn from the world and your experience inside of the world. And he was also saying Wachuma can help you to understand the deeper nature of reality, or the deeper self that is connected to all things and to all of nature. But I noticed that he was very hesitant to say, oh, it is this way, or it is that way, or this is a specific idea that you should subscribe to or take on, but to help turn somebody inwards to look at themselves and to look at the world around them and how they interact with the world. And that's kind of my favorite type of spirituality, is the kind that will lead you inwards to a deeper self-discovery or self-understanding, as opposed to, here's the book, believe every word that's in the book, and that's the only truth. But to find the truth within all truths and to dive into the self and find the truth within, I think those are my favorite teachings. So I like that he said that.
He who runs away from the world to meditate and die in a Himalayan cave searching for God, he has missed the way. He who plunges headlong into...
So right there, I want to talk about a story that I talk about in my book by Bert Hellinger. So I'm trained in family constellations facilitation, and I'm still doing training as well. But Bert Hellinger kind of founded family constellations, or brought it together from many different ideas and modalities that he learned from his different teachings that he learned from on his path. And so he talks about this specific metaphor. So there's this man, and he grew up and he was learning about prophets and God and Jesus and all of these different, spiritual masters. And so as he was growing up, he was like, oh, I'm gonna do my best to go on my own spiritual path and to learn these things and to end up becoming one of those enlightened masters. And so when he grows up, he has his own garden and his own home, and he decides to leave. And he decides to go on his own path of walking to find God. And so he's walking and walking, and he just keeps walking this path, and he eventually ends up in the middle of the desert, just walking in the middle of nothingness. And eventually there's no path that he could take. It's just completely just walking. There's no path, just emptiness. And then he ends up coming across this water, or this, he ends up coming across this body of water. And so he gets to this water place, and he starts to drink water, and then all of a sudden these other people come and they drink water with him. And so they have this conversation, and he's like, oh, I became Jesus. And then another person's like, I became the Buddha. And someone says, oh, I became, this other spiritual enlightened master. And then they spend the night there, and they look up at the stars, and this man who decided to go on the journey and left his garden, he looks up and he thinks, this must be what it was like when Jesus came to know God. And the next day, they each decides to go back to their homes, or go back on the way that they came. This man eventually gets back to his garden, and he decides to just take care of his garden, and that was the end of his seeking. And so he comes to the realization of, now I live by the laws of the land. And to me, this was a very profound story, because it really reminded me of my own journey and of my own spiritual seeking of like, I'm gonna find it, I'm gonna go meditate and find every single modality that's possible, and talk to every single person to find what is the nature of reality and who am I. And like looking under every single rock of like, I'm gonna find it, I'm gonna hold on to it and grasp it, and then I'll finally get it, and I'll let people know this is the truth. And then eventually I was like, oh, there is no such, after finding so many different kinds of ideas and beliefs and people and different ways of spirituality, I learned that there is no truth. There is no one specific book that's going to lead me eventually to find the one truth, or one specific secret book that's going to be the end of the searching or the end of my healing journey, and I'm never going to finally be fully healed and fully enlightened. And I think that word can become very misconstrued when we think of, oh, there's a guru out there who has the total, complete enlightenment. There's a Buddha, and he knows every single thing. And then he came to an endedness, and finally was like the purest of everything that he could be. And along my journey, I finally came to the conclusion that, oh, the journey is the point. The journey of going and meeting all those people and interacting with those many different people and seeing beautiful sights and interacting with different cultures of the world and learning from different people and having fun conversations and laughing with people and crying with people and going on adventures. That was the point of why I came here. That was the purpose of life. And that enjoyment and the highs and the lows and the sadness and the anger was all a part of becoming and growing and evolving and becoming, like he was saying, the new consciousness that is the child, that becomes the teen, that becomes the adult, that becomes, this or that person who took that journey. And that was the only biggest truth I found, was the enjoyment of the journey is one of the most important parts of life, because this life is impermanent and we're not going to have it for eternity. This specific form of who I am, this specific necklace or this specific ring at this point of time is not always going to be here. And so enjoying this specific form and then allowing it to transform when it is needed, or allowing that to transform. Yeah, that's kind of a tangent, but I really wanted to talk about that. It felt good to talk about. Hi, Scotty.
Peace of the world. He wants to enjoy the world. He too has missed the way. Then what is the way? Then what is the way? The way is to deify the world, to spiritualize your everyday life. That's what Swami Vivekananda says. Now with this background, you can actually understand what he means. It is the pure consciousness which you are.
Yes, to find the spirituality even in the mundane tasks of washing the dishes or making food or watering the garden and living by the laws of the land, or being able to look at another human being and see the spiritual nature of them and to see the love in them, or looking up at the sky and enjoying the specific moment of wherever you are is important in this lifetime. Okay.
And therefore, it is the same spiritual reality which I am, which you all are, which all this is. In that sense, we are one with the world. That is spiritualization of the world. When Upanishad says, Ishavasyam idam sarvam, you see God in all beings. This is how you see. This is the most profound and very sophisticated way of looking at it, which you find in the Mandukya Upanishad. And therefore, if anybody, Swami Vivekananda says, if you leave all this and search for Turiya elsewhere, it is like throwing away the bangle, necklace and ring and searching for gold. You miss the way. If you grasp hold of this waking world, this alone is real and I am this one, then you are in trouble, because this one will slowly become old and sick and die. This waking world is continuously changing.
Sir, why do we consider light better than dark? Or similar? We consider something as good.
Yeah.
Why so? Why are the others bad?
Yeah. See, there is certain predisposition within us. Light better than darkness, if you say, we always experience ourselves as conscious beings. Isn't it so? Very word experience. Experience itself includes, it's almost tautological. It's almost circular to say that we experience ourselves as consciousness, because experience includes the fact that there must be consciousness. Otherwise, how will you experience? So, our very nature is to be conscious. You have never been unconscious. You have never had an experience of unconsciousness. When you come out of, suppose you light. So in that sense we like light because it's very much according to our nature. Another thing is, we always search for happiness. We always search for happiness. We try to avoid unhappiness. Therefore certain things which make us happy, we say they are good. With certain things which make us unhappy, we say they are bad. Although the things in themselves may be quite neutral. They may not be good or bad as such. But the effect they are having on us is happiness and unhappiness. Now the whole idea here is, the self which I have discovered here is beyond this happiness and unhappiness. The happiness and unhappiness are all within this waking world and the dream world. This is one way of looking at it. So the Turiyam is apart from the waker. To answer your question, Turiyam is apart from the waker. If you are really apart from it, you ought to be indifferent to it. Or another way of looking at it is the Turiyam itself which appears as the waker and the waking world. Just like in your dream, you appear as the dreamer and the dreaming world. The one who is sleeping and dreaming, in his mind he creates a dream, and he is also himself in that dream. In fact, the entire dream, the people in the dream, the animals and the non-living things, and he himself in the dream, all of them are not apart from his mind. He's actually become everything in that dream. And this states that this Turiya itself is appearing as all this. In other words, the Turiya is one with all. Now, some sadhaka or some spiritual giant may stress the oneness aspect of it. You'll find in Vivekananda again and again and again, he says, you are one, we are one with the universe. It's not a rhetorical thing. You should feel one with the universe, which is good, but he states this as a fact, as an assertion. Actually, you are one with the universe. If you limit yourself to this body and mind, you're separate from all bodies and minds. But if you see what is behind that, like gold, then you are one with everything made of gold. Gold is one with everything made of gold. You see yourself as pure consciousness. In yourself, all these things are taking place. Then you have a sense of oneness with all beings. If you stress that oneness, then the unhappiness of a person, the misery of another person actually will bring a response in you. Just as right now my misery brings a response in me, when I have Sarvatma Bhava, the oneness with everybody, it automatically does. And you see it in the lives of great sadhakas and great spiritual giants. They respond to the life, to the sufferings of others. But you are right. There may be a kind of spiritual giant who does not respond, who may not be cruel, but may simply be indifferent to the world which he will see as a dream. So there have been such people, and they have also been very great spiritual people also. And you can see it in them, a kind of deep peace and joy is there within them. If somebody comes in front who is suffering, they will help. And that has been explained in different ways. And a simple explanation would be, these people have gone through a long period of spiritual practice. And so the mind of that person is suffused with thoughts of good thoughts, helpful thoughts. After realization, when he sees himself apart from all, what would he do? He would let the body and mind go on doing what they were doing, like an inertia of motion. So the inertia of motion of a sage would be to help others. He is apart from the helping also. He sees himself as illumining both the helper and the helped.
So, let's see what comes up. So along my journey, I went through many different periods. So there was a period where I was meditating frequently, continuously, with different kinds of teachers and different monks and things. Like you were saying, I was that guy who went into the cave in the Himalayas and meditated for life. And I don't know that it was more about becoming enlightened, or I feel like it was mostly about really wanting to understand the nature of my true self and that pureness and that love. And I definitely had a huge period of that where I could see, every person around me with so much love and so much of a deep understanding of their deeper nature, and felt that love of God through my own eyes. And then when I got into learning about family constellations and about healing different traumas and traumas that had been passed down through different generations, and actually acknowledging pain and acknowledging some of these hardships, it is a very different kind of practice and a very different understanding of sadness and a very different understanding of the human experience and the dichotomies of the sadness and the happiness and some of the highs and lows of the human experience. And we learn about allowing the pain, allowing the sadness to flow, allowing the tears of the child to flow, and to not suppress and hold back or to keep that inside, because it's very dysfunctional to the human system, and it perpetuates some of these generational patterns and habits. And so I've learned so much about not fixing the sadness, but to allow the sadness to be, and to allow the sadness to flow, and to dive deep into those harder or darker aspects of ourselves, and to dive into the subconscious, to allow that stuff to come out, and to just be without saying, oh, this is wrong, or to disassociate, or to, not be able to look at it or acknowledge it. And so I've learned like I've been in many different of these categories of spirituality, of like pure joy and pure happiness and pure peace and calm and quiet. And then I've dove deep into that, not, I don't want to say healing aspect, but the aspect of acknowledging the what lies in the subconscious mind and what lies in the pain that we have not acknowledged, to release and let go, to forgive, to move through that, to become back to this more pure, joyous child who is back to that state of where we were when we were born into the world, that pureness and that joy. So it was like pure joy when you come into the world, and then you gain all this stuff along your journey, and you carry all these things with you, and you create these barriers around your heart and protection mechanisms and coping mechanisms, because the world is can be so dangerous or hard for us. And then I ended up on the path of pure joy, pure calmness, pure peace, pure nothingness, and just a love for the world along that path. And then I ended up back into the path of going back to the part where the traumas began, and getting into that stuff and helping to release some of the stuff that's been hidden. So it's almost like you have to go through this like process, because you have to get back on your feet and to be able to be strong enough and be able to have steady footing on the ground. It's kind of like, it's part of my process, at least, was to be able to get steady footing on the ground, so that I could go back to and revisit those things with a stronger frame of mind and with brand new tools, which was the family constellations for me. And also, things like Reiki, and like knowing that I can go down into that darkness and come back out having changed and transformed what was inside that I wasn't able to process or to look at when I was much younger. So the spiritual path has many different ways and many different ideas and modalities. And like he was saying, I have heard many times of teachers who say, just go into pure peace and pure love. And then I've also come across teachers who are like, well, it's important to be able to look at those things and to look at those darker aspects to be able to get back to the even, not necessarily even more pureness, but just the joy that is apart from even the sadness. The joy that is the new consciousness that will be transformed by being able to look at even the dark aspects of human experience and human emotion. So it's not an answer that I have a complete, true answer for, but along my journey, I have definitely uncovered that there are many layers, many different ideas, and I have found it to be a very beautiful experience of going back into those traumas or back into that sadness, and to allow it to flow from a much stronger place, and as opposed to, just running from it and not actually being able to look at it and dive into it, to allow it to move, and it's almost like a cleansing. So my teacher says, it's like when you have a pimple, and so everything rises to the pus or whatever the infection, we'll say. Let's say it's like a something where there's an infection, and it's all the pus and the bacteria is rising to the surface to be able to pop and release. So it's like, or maybe it's like it bubbles to the surface, we'll say that. It's like the emotion bubbles to the surface, and so it all kind of collects, and then it's rising and rising, and then finally when you feel that emotion, it's like the bubble bursts, and so it's falling out. So it's like this cleansing of what's underneath, what's inside the subconscious mind of the psyche, to release. And so it creates much more space inside for that joy, much more space for that actual pureness. So it's complicated. There's lots of ideas. So I never stop at just one specific teacher, one specific teaching. And I think that has caused a much deeper experience of spirituality. And I know I'm not done. I know there's much more that I could learn and much more to uncover. And I don't ever take one specific person as truth. one specific idea or teaching as the truth. Like if one teacher, like this guy was saying, says, oh, don't go into the sadness or don't go into these darker aspects, I kind of still decide to question within myself, is that truth, and should I believe that specific thing to be true? There are many ideas, many aspects, but I think this was very beautiful. Thank you for recommending it to me. I think it was Rajesh. I don't know how you say your name. I'm sorry if I messed that up. But thank you for leaving a comment and letting me know you wanted me to react to this video. It was very beautiful. I really enjoyed his ideas about consciousness and about breaking it down. And like he was saying, it's just the very beginning of a lot of these ideas or different ways of believing. So he just kind of gave a little tiny snippet of that specific sect of spiritual path. And so it's beautiful. And I think what makes it beautiful for me is because I've seen many different paths and ideas, you kind of get to see the different connections it has with many other ideas and the different beautiful ideas that underlie all of it, which is the unity and the connection. And even if you dive into psychism or mediumship, you understand, or you start to learn about like out-of-body experiences. You start to understand the consciousness that is apart from the physical body, and especially when you're learning about out-of-body experiences, because people talk about how they could see themselves apart from this body, or they could see themselves in a different form, and that helped them to understand that life lives on even after the physical body is not here. And so it's beautiful for me to be able to make those different connections by listening to this one specific idea and then pull all the things that I've learned and understand the deeper layer. So that was very beautiful. Thank you for recommending it to me. I have not ever heard that teacher speak before, so pretty cool. I get to learn new ideas and new teachers. So if you have another teacher you have, let me know and maybe I will react to them. I think this video was quite long, so I think I'm gonna end it here. If you have anything you'd like for me to react to next, you can leave that down in the comments below. If you have any questions for me, you can also leave those down there for me. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys!